Welcome to the Buick Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Sheldon Marion, and on this podcast, we dive deep into the outdoors. We discuss hunting and fishing techniques, give you tips and tricks, tell stories, and everything in between to help you enjoy the outdoors. This podcast is brought to you by Northbound Gear. Northbound Gear is designed for maneuverability and durability and is made to last through even the toughest of elements. My go-to for their pants is the water resistance adventure pants and their lined waterproof jeans. I've worn them while out ice fishing, crawling through the woods bear hunting, and on the west coast out on the boat. And I even wear them around when I'm having a lazy day at the house. They are that comfortable. They also offer jackets, summer pants, backpacks, and many more. Men's and women's sizes are available, and by partnering with One Tree Planted, you're planting a tree with every purchase. Check them out for yourself at northboundgear.co, and when you use my promo code Sheldon15 at checkout, you'll receive 15% off your order. That's northboundgear.co and promo code Sheldon15. This podcast is brought to you by Rampage Coffee. Rampage Coffee is crafted in micro batches to produce a premium quality coffee that is just not possible any other way. Step up your coffee game and get amped with premium quality freshly roasted coffee. Right now I'm waiting on the sampler bundle where you get to try all 4 blends for around $20. It comes with the Full Force Premium Espresso, Code Black Dark Roast, Riot Medium Roast, the C4 Extreme Caffeine Blend, and it also comes with some pretty cool looking stickers. If you head over to rampagecoffee.com and use our promo code Buick, you'll receive 10% off. That's rampagecoffee.com, promo code BUICK to get 10% off and get amped with Rampage Coffee. Hey everyone, welcome back to Buick Outdoors. If you're new around here, my name is Sheldon Marion, and today we're going to be talking about spring spot and stalk bear hunting. So when it comes to springtime spot and stalk bear hunting, if you're in an area like we are here up in northern BC, it is actually a very, very easy and kind of relaxing hunt. If you're in a spot where the bear population isn't nearly as high, you're going to have quite a bit of troubles. Mainly what you want to be focusing on, though, is their food sources, especially in the springtime. It's especially true in the fall as well, but with the fall, they're a lot more spread out. In the springtime, though, it's very, very easy to kind of pinpoint where they're at. Right off the hop, right when the snow is just starting to melt and you're starting to get the warmer weather. Basically, the only thing that they have to eat when they first come out of their den is in the tops of poplar trees, and they have all the little poplar buds, those small little sacks of like kind of sap, and the leaves are just starting to come out. You'll find them in the top of trees, just mowing down on that stuff. Other than that, there's some pussy willows and stuff like that, and that's kind of it. So the first, couple weeks to few weeks, depending on how your spring is going, really, if you're out there and you're doing that extremely early hunt, I would mainly focus on great big thick patches of poplar trees, and I wouldn't even look down on the ground, really. For the most part, where you'll see them is way high up in trees, and it's almost like hunting them with dogs. You're going to be aiming way up there in the treetops, and you're going to be shooting them out of a tree, basically. Because especially during that time, a lot of the time, there's still snow on the ground, or if the snow is gone, the ground is so saturated and it hasn't been warm enough yet, where there's no new growth coming in. There's no new grasses, dandelions, clovers, or anything like that, so their main food source is just the poplar buds. After that, though, once these things start to kind of dry up and you're starting to get into a little bit of a warmer weather, what we usually do around here, because it's a really heavy oil and gas area, we drive and we look down pipelines. Pipelines are usually nice, wide, and open, and Typically speaking, the grasses will start to grow on the pipelines as as early as like the first week of May, kind of a thing. And again, it all depends on the season that you're having. This year, it might be a little bit later because even today, being April 11th, uh, I still have roughly about foot to maybe 2 feet of snow in my yard out here. So this year it's gonna be a while before you see them on the pipelines. But with that being said, we've been having a lot of warm weather lately. So within about a week or two, the poplars they should start to bud, hopefully, and you'll start to see bears in there. Another great place is while you're driving around looking for the pipelines, just the ditches and the side of the roads. Uh, Again, it's kind of like that mid to late May kind of time for us up here in the north, and you'll see all the little grasses starting to grow on the sides of the road. Same thing that's on the pipelines, but then you also get some of the clovers later on in the year, and then right around the first week of June, typically, is when the dandelions start to grow. And with those, the bears will wreak havoc on dandelions. A lot of times you'll see them on like south facing hills because you get all the sun exposure in the beginning of the day. So it uh, it just nukes the snow and it dries the soil up, and then things start to grow much faster. So if you ever do find a nice little patch of dandelions, uh, basically you can almost set up like a blind because a bear is going to come in there and he is going to be chewing on those fresh new dandelions. Another great spot too is the cut blocks. uh, it kind of depends on the cut block though. Some of them, like a lot of them around here, are sprayed, so they kind of nuke it all, and then others just, it all kind of depends on the logging company. Some people do a really nice clean job, and when they do that, things grow up real quick. Other places, there's a lot of kind of leftover junk, basically. There's some limbs and stuff, and it kind of almost makes like a canopy along the top of the soil. So when things aren't exactly able to sprout and grow up as fast as if it's a nice clean job done. But again, that's just part of driving around in that end of May-ish, middle of May to beginning of June kind of time. Uh, the pipelines are turning green, the ditches on the road are turning green, the dandelions are starting to sprout, the new growth in the cut blocks are starting to come up, and really they they're coming out of hibernation. They are hungry. They haven't ate in a very long time. So wherever there is any kind of vegetation, that is where the bears are going to be. Another thing with bears, they don't exactly have like travel corridors, and they don't have a spring grounds and a fall grounds and a wintering grounds. You'll see that a lot with like elk and deer and moose. They kind of travel, uh, kind of depending on your area. Where with bears, where they hibernate and where they den is typically where they live all year long. So once as you find that food source, typically there's gonna be, again, it depends on the amount of bears in your area. Up here, within like 1 square mile, you could have like 1 to 3 bears, kind of a thing, because they're just so thick in this area. For other places, you might have one per 4 or 5 square miles, kind of a thing. But with that being said, if you do see a bear and the stalk is kind of messed up or the wind catches your scent and they run off, it's not a huge concern at all. They're not going to be running over, the next ridge or anything like that. Typically, what happens, because they don't really travel and they stay centralized to where their food source is, they don't leave. Uh, Whenever you see a bear, that's his home. His den is going to be right close. His food source is right close. And they're a very simple animal. They don't have any reason to leave whatsoever. And even if you spook them or whatever, if you spook them on a pipeline and the road goes around the corner, honestly, there's been times where I've spooked a bear on the pipeline. I drove around the corner and I watched him walk out of the bush. And that was like 200 yards away. And then, you get a second chance. Bears don't like to travel. They don't like to use up hardly any energy whatsoever. They are, in a way, a docile animal. They just like to graze, do their thing, eat, get fat and sassy, kind of a thing, and then go to sleep in the winter. So wherever you find food sources for the bears, you're most likely going to find a bear there. Especially when you're in a spot like this where you have a very thick population of bears. If you live in an area where you don't have that many bears, you are going to have to hike around a little bit and not necessarily find the food source. There's always going to be a food source for the bears. You're just going to have to find where the bears are. But even with that being said, it goes back to the travel corridors. If you find a bear after hiking for a day, a week, whatever, that's where that bear lives. So if you find a bear that's 2 ridges over from where you parked the vehicle, that is where he lives. If you find him late Monday night, come back Tuesday morning, he's going to be there. Just sit back, relax. That bear is in that general area. They don't like to travel. They don't like to run. They don't like to climb trees. They're, in a sense, like very lazy. They don't like to expel any more energy than they absolutely have to. So once as you find the food source, you're gonna find the bears, unless you're in a very, very small bear population area. Then you kind of have to find both at the same time. But once as you find that bear, that's where that bear is gonna be. You can almost bet money that they're not gonna move far from a 500 yard to a 1 mile circle like that. That is where they live. And honestly, if you started doing like a grid pattern search, you're going to find their den in there as well. One thing that should be mentioned too, when you're doing spot and stalk bear hunting, depending on where you're hunting, there's a lot of things that go into kind of like, we'll call it your weapon selection, whether you're bow hunting, black powder, rifle hunting, whatever it is. You have to kind of take into consideration the terrain that you're going to be in. For us up here, we have wide open poplar and wide open pine that you'll find bears in, but we also have a lot of like swampy ground where you have a lot of black spruce, or swamp spruce is what we call it, where when you go into that stuff, you can't see more than maybe 10 yards, and like that's an open spot. There's times where I've shot a bear, he ran into that black spruce stuff and just laid down, and that's where he was. I sorry, I got to be careful with my wording with YouTube these days. But anyways, I was on my hands and knees crawling, looking for the blood trail and stuff, and I basically like crawled up onto this bear that was just laying there because it's so thick. But in other areas where it's nice and wide open, you can just kind of casually walk through. So then that's where your weapon selection is very crucial. If I'm in the wide open places and I'm just kind of like truck hunting, which I do for the most part, to be honest with you, you know, the weapon selection is massive. Just pack whatever you want to pack. You don't have to worry about getting on your hands and knees and crawling. You don't have to worry about hiking uphill or anything like that. You're driving around in a truck. If you have your whatever, if you have a custom gun that weighs, 10 pounds, 11 pounds, and it's your precision rifle and you can shoot whatever, yada yada, you know what? If you're truck hunting, you can take it. However, if you're going to be hiking hills or going through like some of this black spruce, you cannot take that. The barrel's going to be 24, 26 inches long. It's going to be heavy, sloppy. It's going to be falling off your shoulder. It's just not feasible. You can do it, but it's not going to be enjoyable. So when it comes to your weapon selection, uh, it all depends on the terrain that you're in and the type of hunts. Like I said, truck hunting, take whatever you want. It doesn't matter. You're not exactly packing it. If you are packing it, you're packing it on basically a quick stalk, and you're either going to get the animal or not, and then you're back into the truck and then you're driving again. It doesn't matter. But when you're in like the swamp spruce, I'll bring. I used to have a real short 300 Winchester short mag, uh, but now if I'm in that real thick stuff, I'll bring like my 4570. It's the Marlin guide gun, the 1895 short barrel 4570. The thing is only like a couple feet long, kind of a deal. So when I'm crawling through that, it's also open sights. If I'm crawling through that black spruce and the bear pops up, it's easy to swing around. I shouldn't have too many issues getting snagged up in trees and stuff. And then also with open sights, I can literally grab it and just crawl on my hands and knees with it, and I'm not really gonna have too many issues. But with that being said, if I'm hunting in that stuff and I'm doing some hiking around, I would like to bring my 300 with me, like my Win mag, not my short mag. I don't have that anymore. But the problem with that is it's a 24-inch barrel. There's a scope on it. If you're in that real thick stuff and you got to swing around real quick, chances are you're going to hit a limb, hit a tree or whatever, and it's just not really going to work. Plus, I packed that on my back, and when you're walking through that stuff, you're going to get limbs and stuff snagging your barrel and pulling it off your shoulder, and you're going to be making so much noise that the bear, he's just going to sit there and walk circles around you, kind of a thing. And then the same thing can be said about if I'm packing my bow. If I'm in the open pines or the open poplar or the open spruce, whatever, it's not a big deal to carry my bow. However, if I'm in that swampy black spruce area, again, you have an arrow that's knocked on your bow. Every time you turn and stuff, your broadhead's going to snag a piece of grass or a limb or whatever, and it's going to be bouncing around or come unknocked, and, it's just terrible. So when it comes to your weapon selection, you have to be not exactly really cautious about it, but just be a little mindful about where you are going to be hunting and where you potentially could be hunting. Uh, Again, depending on the area that you hunt, up here, we can be driving down a 5 kilometer road, and you could start in Willows, go into Poplar, get on top of the hill, and it's some nice wide open pine or spruce, dip down to the bottom of the hill, and it could be black spruce. So for us up here, a lot of times what I do is I pack two weapons. I pack my 300 or the 270 or the 30-06, and then in the passenger seat, I got my 4570. Plus, the 4570 also acts as my backup gun. If I do wound a bear and it goes into the trees, I'm packing that thing because it holds five. It's a lever action, so if you get into a oh no moment, you can just John Wayne them and kind of walk out of there. Another thing that a lot of people, and it drives me nuts. One thing is camouflage. Uh, Man, it's a touchy subject for a lot of people, especially the people that buy into the KUIU and Sitka and Under Armour, and you need camouflage for this. It's not the case when it comes to bears. Uh, I wear camo from time to time when I'm hunting bears, not because you need camouflage, because that's the clothes that are in my holiday trailer. That's my camping clothes, really, really. And even the camo that I wear, I go to Walmart, Canadian Tire, whatever, and I just buy what's on the shelf. It'll say real tree or mossy oak or whatever. It doesn't really matter when it comes to bear hunts. Uh, Bears have extremely terrible eyes. You can't fool their nose, but you can fool their eyes every single day. They are, I'm sure they're half blind, because man, you could hunt bears in a chicken suit and still get it done. Uh, And I know a lot of people, they're probably going to be watching or listening to this and just screaming at the screen. But you do not need camouflage to hunt bears. What I recommend when it comes to hunting bears is just wear something that's slightly dark. So in that way you don't exactly like stand out. But at the same time, if a bear, especially in the spring, if he sees you walking, if you just stop and stand there, he'll look at you and he'll kind of eye you up and think whether or not you're a threat. Most of the times, they're whatever. I got more important things to do. I have to eat. I just woke up. I've been sleeping for 4 to 6 months. I'm starving. This grass is the only thing I have to eat right now. So I am focusing on my meal. You're not walking towards me. You're not waving your arms. I don't care about you. I am hungry as hell and I'm eating. That's basically the mindset of a bear. If you just simplify things like that, your chances of getting a bear are just exponentially larger. Uh, a lot of times, what I wear is my Northbound Gear pants because if you're sitting there crawling and stuff, you want something that's somewhat uh, waterproof and real tough. And with the Northbound Gear pants, they're cut resistance, they're waterproof. They're a great all around pant for doing this. Plus, you can get them in like the blacks and the dark greens. There is like a snow camo, and I wouldn't recommend doing that because white with a black or a green background, you're gonna stand out, which you don't want to do. And then for like a shirt, honestly, just what I'm wearing right now, a black and white plaid shirt, reds, dark purples, blues, blacks, browns. As long as you kind of have some sort of not exactly a pattern, but just something that's just dark. You wouldn't want to wear like a baby blue shirt. However, I have shot bears in regular old blue jeans and a t-shirt. You know, as long as you, as long as when you're, stalking up on the bear, if they stop and look at you, stop moving because they're gonna look at you, and even if you are wearing something bright, they're gonna look at you and they're gonna eye you up. They're gonna size you up, and whether you're a threat or not, they're either gonna say you're worth running from, or I'm going back to eat. So I mean, like, really, as long as you're just kind of casually walking up to the bear, like it doesn't take much to walk up within 200 yards of a bear. A lot of times, once as you get kind of later into the season, it's a little bit harder just because there's a little bit more pressure on them. But right at the beginning of spring, man, they don't care. And that's why I keep pushing, like, when it comes to camel on a lot of people, like, don't worry about it, especially if you're a new hunter. uh Man, if you want to buy camouflage, sure, go ahead and buy it. Don't spend a fortune on it. There is a lot of things where it is smart to dress in layers and all that good stuff, but you don't need to buy the layering system from Sitka or Kuyu. Like, it is nice stuff and it will last you a long time and it does look cool, but in general, you don't really need it. If you want to dress in layers, honestly, like, it sounds like I'm sponsored by Walmart, but I use Walmart because it's kind of everywhere. Go to Walmart, buy long johns, the long underwear, tops and bottoms, buy a long sleeve shirt, buy, the camouflage jackets that are like those 3-in-1s or 4-in-1s. I mean, that's what I have. There's, what is it? Yeah, it's a 3-in-1. There's an outer layer and an inner layer, and you can take the inner layer out so you can have a spring jacket. Once you take the inner layer out, you can wear the outer uh, as a main jacket as well, and that's kind of like a springish fall. And then when you put them all two together, that's a nice real thick jacket, and they're like $200. So if you have your $15 long underwear from Walmart, you have that $200 3-in-1 jacket, and then for pants, whether you want to buy the Northbound Gear or just a good set of like Carhartts, Wrangler jeans, whatever, as long as it's somewhat tough kind of a deal, because chances are you might have to go on your hands and knees a little bit. And man, you have a full hunting setup for a few $100s instead of a few $1,000s. One thing when it comes to stocking up on a bear, a lot of times, uh, I mean, if you watch the videos of my bear hunts, you'll see that I have the main camera, I have a GoPro off the side of the main camera, then I got a GoPro on my head, and a lot of times I just walk up to him in a straight line, kind of in the ditch, so I have a little bit of something in behind me. So in that way, if he stops and looks at me, I can stop, and he sees somewhat of an outline of a person. Plus, I'm carrying all this gear, so I really stand out. But then there's also trees and stuff behind me. You always want to keep something behind you so you somewhat blend in, because again, the bear's eyes are absolutely terrible. As long as they don't really see movement, they don't really care all that much, to be honest with you. And as long as the wind's not blowing towards them, they won't be able to smell you, and that's their biggest defense, is being able to smell you. And when it comes to bears too, you don't need any, like, the cover scent smells and or anything crazy like that. I definitely wouldn't use like bear urine or anything like that, because I've seen some things where they advertise that, and I wouldn't use that at all. But like the scent killer sprays and stuff, you can use it when it comes to like deer, elk, and moose, and it helps a little bit. But with bears, don't waste your time. You could soak your clothes in that, and they would still smell you, because their noses are so incredibly good. So I mean, you have to work the wind and you have to work their eyes. Fortunately for you, working their eyes is very simple. Don't move. And it is that simple. Uh, Also, when it comes to stocking up on the bears, a lot of times what I'll do, if I have to be in the wide open, like if I'm going down a pipeline and that bear is 300, 400, a kilometer away, once I get close enough to the point where they're starting to pay attention to me, I'll get on my hands and knees, and I'll just basically pretend and act like I'm a bear grazing. So in that way, you're low to the ground. You look like a small little bear, especially if you're wearing dark clothes. And while they're eating, and their head is down, crawl towards them. Just go straight for him. Don't worry about it. Once he stops eating, because they'll kind of sit there and they'll munch down, kind of like watching a cow. Where if you watch a cow graze, they sit there and they use their teeth. They pick up all that grass. Then once they have a mouthful of grass, they kind of stop, and they'll sit there and they'll pick their head up and they'll chew on it, and they kind of look around. They check the surroundings. They swallow the grass. Then they go back down and they start chewing on it. A bear does the exact same thing. So when you're watching a bear, he'll sit there, he'll be picking at the grass or whatever, start crawling, give him a few bites or whatever, stop. Because then he's going to pick up his head, he's going to look around, make sure there's no big boars coming after him or any hunters or anything like that, right? He's going to sit there and he's going to chew up his food. He might look at you and stare at you while he's chewing. He might try to smell you in the air, but again, if you're playing the wind right, he's not going to smell anything. He's not really going to see anything. You'd look like a bear sitting there eating grass and whatever. Small little bear, I can take him. And then he's going to go back to eating. And once he goes back to eating, start calling again. And as long as you do that, being able to get within 100 yards of a bear is actually easy. I don't like to use the word easy, but it's fairly easy. And then going back to their food sources and not exactly being big travelers, if they do happen to spot you and smell you and they take off running, what I've done a lot of times over the years is, if I ever spook a bear and even if they just completely bolt and it looks like they're getting the hell out of the country, I don't move. I just sit there and I wait for about 5 to 10 minutes, because there has been multiple times where a bear has just bolted, gone. Like, you think he is gonna be 10 miles away in 5 minutes. And all they really do is they run into the trees where they feel nice, safe, and protected. They turn around, they look at you, and they eye you up. There might only be 5 to 20 yards in the tree line, and they'll just sit there and they'll watch you. And as long as you're not running around and, you know, cursing and kicking the dirt and whatever, if you just sit there and just casually wait, a lot of times what'll end up happening is they'll come right back out, either exactly where they went in at or within 200 yards, either way. If the wind's blowing real bad, a lot of times what'll happen is they'll kind of circle around just to get your wind, and then they might take right off. But for the most part, they come out fairly close and they just kind of go back to grazing. But now they kind of know that you're there, so you have to be a little bit more cautious. But for the most part, if they take off, they're not leaving. And if they don't come back out within that 5-10 minutes, head back to the truck, leave, come back either later on that day or give it a day or two or whatever. And I can almost guarantee you that that bear is going to be right back there on that pipeline or in the ditch where you last seen them, or in that one specific spot in the cut block, because again, they don't like to leave food. Even if there's food the next road over, they might be there, but in general, they have this small circle that they stay in, and they don't leave unless another bear pushes them out. And if that happens, don't worry about it. If a bear pushes out that bear, this bear's a bigger one. So, it's a win-win. You might have lost out on this little guy, but this big one took his place. And now, this guy here being uh, like the educated one, he kind of knows what you look like and what you smell like. Well, now you restart the game with this bigger one who doesn't have a clue that you're even in the area. All he knows is that he pushed out this other guy. So now you get to go after this one, and then plus it opens up a new search area for that first bear. So I mean, it's when it comes to spring spot and stalk bear hunting, it's a great way to get out. It's a great way to get new people involved. Uh, you know, you can get them with pretty well any caliber of gun there is. I made a video and a podcast earlier. If you guys want to check that out, you can go on to our YouTube channel, and it'll just be under podcast playlist or under the how to. I believe I put it there, so you can watch that on which actual calibers I recommend. But you can take anyone bear hunting, especially if you're truck hunting. Uh, it is a nice, enjoyable, relaxing hunt. And I can honestly say that I've taken out little kids. I've taken out my dad. I've taken my brother, my girlfriend, his wife. Anyone can go on a bear hunt and actually enjoy it. You don't need a bunch of camouflage. You don't need any fancy gear. Like, honestly, you can go out with just almost a car if you have the right road conditions, really. And you can just cruise around. You can even bring your dogs. You can listen to music. Once as you see a bear, turn the music off, tell everybody to shut up, and then you get serious about it. But for the most part, when it comes to this, especially the way we do it up here in the northern BC area, like, it's not a lot of work, and it's a ton of fun. And the best part about it too, especially if you have a new hunter with you, is if you see a bear and you ruin the stalk, it's not like moose or elk hunting where you might only get that one chance. Up here, if you see a bear and you ruin that stalk, don't worry about it. You are perfectly fine, because the chances are that bear's going to come right back out to where it was, or you're going to go up the road another couple miles, maybe 10 miles, 100 yards, whatever it is, and you're going to see another one, especially the very beginnings of spring when all the grasses are just starting to grow up in the ditch, because that's the only thing they have to eat is the grasses on the ditch or in the pipelines. And then once the dandelions start to come out, there's been times where I've come up onto a lease and I've seen 4 bears on one small little hill, and it was just loaded with dandelions and bears. You know what I mean? So, like, get out there and enjoy a hunt with family and friends, or by yourself, or with your dog. Heck, bring your cat, whatever. Like, it's one of those hunts where it's enjoyable, it's easy, and all you have to do is get over the fear of bears. I know a lot of people, they don't like to hunt bears because they think they taste bad or they're scary. And again, tasting bad, watch the video, listen to the podcast of what recipes I recommend. They taste absolutely phenomenal. As long as you cook them well done, you'll never run into any issues with trichinosis. Trim the fat off if they're around like salmon streams and stuff, or don't hunt them around dumps. Like it's a very very simple concept, and honestly, with if you just go out a couple of times, kind of learn something for every trip, and man, I'm telling you, bear hunting will become one of your favorite things to hunt aside from chickens, because like it's relaxing, it's enjoyable, and man, it's a good way to get out of the house after a long winter. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast and this video. If you do, please hit that like button. Head over to our YouTube channel if you're just listening to this. Give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.